There was a time when Daniel had only one goal in life: to survive until tomorrow. Every morning, long before the sun appeared above the city, Daniel woke up in his tiny apartment, put on the same old work clothes, and started walking toward the warehouse where he worked. His shoes were worn out, his clothes were faded, and his wallet was almost always empty. But Daniel never complained. He simply kept going because he believed that hard work was the only thing he had. Daniel worked harder than almost everyone around him. He loaded heavy boxes, cleaned storage rooms, moved equipment, organized deliveries, and stayed late whenever his manager needed extra help. His hands were tired at the end of every day, and his body often felt exhausted. But the hardest part wasn't the work. The hardest part was knowing that no matter how many hours he worked, his life never seemed to improve. His paycheck disappeared within days. Rent took most of it. Food took another part. Electricity, transportation, and other bills took almost everything that remained. Sometimes Daniel would sit alone in his small apartment at night, staring at the ceiling and wondering how other people managed to become successful. He had dreams too, but dreams seemed expensive when you were struggling just to pay your bills. One rainy evening, Daniel was working late at the warehouse. Most of the employees had already gone home when his manager called him over. There was an old storage room at the back of the building that hadn't been properly cleaned for years. His manager asked Daniel to clear it before the end of the week. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and walked into the room. Dust covered almost everything. There were broken chairs, old computers, damaged shelves, boxes filled with papers, and equipment nobody seemed to remember. As Daniel moved a large wooden cabinet away from the wall, something metallic caught his attention. Behind the cabinet was a small metal box. Daniel picked it up and wiped away the thick layer of dust covering its surface. There was no company logo, no name, and no label. The box looked old, but strangely, it had a small screen on the front. Daniel pressed the only button he could find. The screen suddenly turned on. 3 words appeared. Money system activated. Daniel stared at the screen in confusion. He looked around the room to see if someone was playing a joke on him. But the storage room was completely empty. A second message appeared. Your current balance, $0. Daniel almost laughed. He thought someone had created a strange old machine as a prank. Then another message appeared. Complete 1 task to earn your first dollar. Daniel looked at the screen again. A simple task appeared. Find 1 problem around you and create a solution. Daniel didn't understand what was happening, but he decided to play along. He began thinking about problems at the warehouse. After working there for years, he knew there were plenty. One problem immediately came to mind. Workers wasted a huge amount of time searching for tools and equipment because nothing had a proper place. The next day, during his lunch break, Daniel started organizing the storage area. He created simple labels and marked specific locations for tools and equipment. It wasn't complicated, but it made a huge difference. When the other workers returned, they immediately noticed that everything was easier to find. Daniel's manager walked into the storage area and looked around. Who organized all this? He asked. Daniel raised his hand. His manager looked surprised. This is actually useful, he said. We're wasting hours every week looking for things. That evening, Daniel returned to the old storage room and checked the mysterious device. The screen displayed something new. Balance, $1. Daniel stared at it. $1 wasn't going to change his life. It wasn't enough to pay his rent or his bills. But that $1 meant something. For the first time, Daniel had earned money by solving a problem rather than simply selling another hour of his life. The device displayed another message. Solve another problem. Daniel began paying attention to everything around him. He noticed that the warehouse was wasting money because boxes were being damaged during deliveries. He studied the problem and suggested a different way of packaging them. The company tested his idea. It worked. They saved hundreds of dollars. When Daniel checked the device that night, his balance had increased. He couldn't believe it. The mysterious system wasn't simply giving him money. It was rewarding him for creating value. That realization changed the way Daniel looked at his life. Instead of asking, how can I work more hours? He started asking, what problems can I solve? That question became the beginning of something much bigger. Daniel started noticing problems everywhere. He noticed that workers were wasting time recording deliveries manually. He created a simple spreadsheet that made the process faster. He noticed that some supplies were being ordered unnecessarily. He suggested a better tracking system. Every time he solved a useful problem, the system rewarded him. But something even more important was happening. Daniel's mind was changing. For years, he had believed that being poor meant he had no opportunities. Now he was beginning to understand that opportunities could exist inside problems. He just had to learn how to recognize them. For the first time in his life, Daniel wasn't simply working harder. He was learning how to work smarter. And that was only the beginning. After discovering the mysterious money system, Daniel's life slowly began to change. But the biggest change wasn't in his bank account. It was in the way he thought. Every night after finishing his warehouse shift, Daniel would return to his small apartment, open his old laptop, and start learning. He watched free lessons about business, technology, communication, marketing, and finance. He read articles, took notes, practiced new skills, and searched for ways to solve real problems. It wasn't easy. Sometimes Daniel was exhausted before he even opened the laptop. There were nights when he wanted nothing more than to sleep. But he remembered the strange message on the device. Create value. So he kept learning. Daniel started experimenting with small ideas. Some worked. Many didn't. One of his first ideas completely failed. He spent several weeks trying to create a simple service for local businesses, but nobody wanted it. He felt disappointed and almost gave up. Then he remembered something important. Failure wasn't proof that he couldn't succeed. Failure was information. He studied what went wrong, changed his approach, and tried again. This time, something different happened. Daniel discovered that many small businesses in his city had the same problem his warehouse had. They were losing time because their daily operations were poorly organized. Business owners were spending hours doing tasks that could be simplified. Daniel decided to help them. At first, he had only one customer. It was a small local business that needed help organizing its inventory. Daniel spent several evenings creating a simple system for them. When the owner saw the result, he was impressed. Then he recommended Daniel to another business. That business recommended him to another. Slowly, Daniel's small service began to grow. His income increased. But Daniel didn't make the mistake of spending everything he earned. He remembered what it felt like to have nothing. Instead of buying expensive things, he invested his money back into his skills and business. He bought better equipment. He learned new software. He improved his communication skills. He studied how successful businesses worked. And most importantly, he continued solving problems. Months passed. Daniel's small business became more successful. Eventually, he was earning more from his own work than he had ever earned at the warehouse. One morning, Daniel walked into the warehouse for what would be his final shift. He looked around at the place where he had spent years working. The same shelves, the same boxes, the same machines. But Daniel wasn't the same person anymore. His manager noticed something different about him. "You seem happy today," he said. Daniel smiled. "I think it's time for me to try something new." His manager wished him luck. Daniel walked out of the warehouse with no idea exactly what the future would bring. But for the first time, he wasn't afraid. He had learned how to create his own opportunities. That night, Daniel opened the mysterious metal box. His balance was now far larger than he could have imagined when he first found it. Then the screen suddenly changed. System complete. Daniel stared at the message. A second message appeared. The money was never the real reward. Daniel became completely still. Then one final sentence appeared. The real reward was teaching you how to create value. The screen went black. Daniel pressed the button again. Nothing happened. He tried several times. Still nothing. The device had completely stopped working. Daniel looked at it for a long time. Then he smiled. He finally understood. The system had never been about money. It had been about changing the way he saw the world. Before finding the device, Daniel saw problems and felt helpless. After finding it, he saw problems and searched for solutions. That difference changed everything. Years later, Daniel became a successful entrepreneur. He built a company that helped small businesses improve their operations and save time. He hired people who had once struggled just like he had. And whenever someone asked him how he became successful, Daniel never mentioned the mysterious device. Instead, he told them about the lesson he learned. Don't ask how you can get paid for another hour of your time. Ask what problem you can solve. Because hard work matters. Discipline matters. Persistence matters. But if you combine those things with valuable skills and the ability to solve real problems, you can create opportunities that didn't exist before. Daniel started with almost nothing. He had no wealthy family, no powerful connections, no special advantage. He simply made one decision. He decided to stop waiting for his circumstances to change. He decided to change himself. He learned. He practiced. He failed. He tried again, and slowly, his life began to change. Maybe your situation is difficult right now. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you work hard every day but don't see the results you want. Remember Daniel's lesson. Sometimes the answer isn't to work more hours. Sometimes the answer is to learn a new skill. Find a problem. Create a solution. Provide value. Keep improving. And don't expect success to happen overnight. The first dollar may seem small. The first customer may seem insignificant. The first step may feel like nothing. But every great journey begins with something small. Daniel's story began with an old metal box in a forgotten storage room. But the real system wasn't inside the box. It was inside his mind. And once he learned